found out that one of the tenants was actually the owner of the building that was being taken back by the bank. So that was, I wouldn't say difficult, but it was strange, you know.
Welcome back to the Commercial Property Investor podcast. I have Derek with me today. Hi, Derek.
Hi, Jerry.
Thanks for coming and joining me. We're going to have a conversation today about SSAS investing, your own SSAS investing, but also just SSAS investing in general. And I'm really intrigued about your project that you've done in Newcastle, a retail CMO effectively. But before we get to that, maybe we should just introduce who Derek is. So could you maybe do that? Derek, what's your background? Where do you live? What are you up to? What's your kind of your investing goals right now?
Yeah, so currently living in Glasgow.
Yep.
Working offshore. So I started my trade as an electrician early days and moved through into major industries, power stations, nuclear, and then oil and gas. And then I got my way offshore. Been offshore since 1999 and working in a supervisor's role out there. So enjoyed it all these times for all these years. Property-wise, probably get involved in property seriously in 2015 after some training. Moved into residential, followed by some buy-to-let and flips. Then in 2018, created a SSAS pension, connected that to my property company, and from there onwards, everything seemed to be commercial generally. Yep. So I think one of the first steps for the SSAS pension was just transferred over a defined benefit pension scheme. So there was quite a large cash equivalent transfer value went across there, and that was allow me to be able to kind of buy the first property in Newcastle effectively.
Great. Okay. So I'm going to go back a little bit. You mentioned about probably 2015, did you say? Mm-hmm. But you were doing it well before that, weren't you?
Yeah, so I kind of done a couple of flips in 2010, 2011 that didn't really go too well. There was no education involved in that.
Yeah.
Kind of around about the Shawlands area, 1-bedroom flats, putting in wooden floors and integrated appliances, and kind of just went overkill, you know. Went with the heart and no the head. So never really made a profit there, 2 in a row, and kind of parked it for later. I think we were coming out the crash then, 2008 crash, and things were still a bit slow. So that was kind of, we kind of paused that until later on. Then went back and got some education in 2015.
And what was that education based around? Was that multiple strategies, specifically on buy, refurb, repair?
Yeah, it was your typical, you know, training courses that are available. Kind of weekend shot in a big hotel where you get to see the buy, refurbish and refinance kind of strategy. And it kind of opened my eyes. I thought, well, if I'd known that strategy before and known how to do that, maybe I'd had a couple in the bag.
Yeah.
You know, by this time, so that kind of set us.
So no matter what we generally think or suggest or talk about in terms of different training products out there, actually, oftentimes it's the opening of the eyes, isn't it?
Exactly.
To what's possible.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So then you started doing residential more successfully. You mentioned about taking some of your pension and converting that into SSAS. How did you hear about SSAS?
I heard it around in the kind of resi trading, in the kind of resi circles, where it's, you know, most people run out of funds. You know, even people with substantial funds run out of funds because eventually will run out of funds. And this kind of untapped market of using your pension to buy property was identified at one of these training courses. It was probably quite fitting because being in oil and gas and for a number of years, there was a number of pensions that was accrued, and I'd also started a private pension back in 1990. So I'd always watched these pensions generate the good times and the bad times. Generally over that period in time, decades, it was quite good, you know, as a return. So I had this pot, and then I thought, right, okay, probably around about the 2018 time was the Section 24 and all that kind of stuff getting out, and commercial was getting spoke about a bit more common, you know, kind of let the tenants pay for the bills, etc. So I kind of had an interest in that, and this SAS thing just kind of developed. So, I kind of investigated that, and before I knew it, I had created a SAS that was approved by HMRC, and it took a couple of months for the funds to get across, but
Yeah.
I got the funds transferred over, and
Yeah, I mean, we talk about SAS quite a lot in here, and I guess it's would be right, just be right for me to say, SAS is particular to the UK, and there will be some listeners in other parts of the world that don't have SAS, but there are often other mechanisms there to do, to be able to actually work with your own pension rather than giving it over to an institution to deal with. So SAS being self-administered small scheme, but your property business was the sponsoring, from what you said earlier on, was the sponsoring business to get the whole process going.
Yeah, very important that you've got a trading,
Entity,
business, to connect to the SAS.
Yeah, but then actually the pension pot didn't come from there. It came from various other pensions that you were able to transfer over.
Sure.
Yeah, great. Okay, so it's also probably worth saying, Derek, that you've had a life there of working in quite a lot of interesting sectors, I have to say. But nevertheless, you've worked all your life. You've been saving up these pensions, and then you've probably, in some people's eyes, been quite brave and taken that and put it into your own hands instead of leaving it with other people, which some people would say was also brave. And you've gone out and actually bought something. Because there are quite a few people that put together a SAS but then sit on their hands and don't actually do anything. So I want to talk about that first commercial project, right, which is over in Newcastle. So how did that come about? How did you even hear about the project? And just talk me through the first stages of actually assessing that and getting it over the line.
Okay. So SAS was approved probably late 2018. The funds were transferred probably early 2019. But I knew I needed education in the commercial field.
Yep.
So, I sort of kind of mastermind group, as it were, joined in, small club, and learned about commercial.
Yep.
And I would probably say anybody that's got a good knowledge of residential will pick up on commercial, because they've picked up in resi if that's not been their primary, job or role or area of expertise. So yeah, I kind of picked up in this mastermind group the kind of fundamentals, and then it was the exercise for everybody to go and seek a property. I was fortunate enough to have decent funds in the tank to buy cash. So I found the property just lies about 10 mile north of Newcastle in a small place called Bedlington, and it was on Zoopla. So it was just on the open market.
Yep.
It was offers invited. It was the property was in administration, and I thought, right, okay. First of all, the ABC of commercial was to make sure the location was right. So it was high street. There was a bit of regeneration taking place in the town. Vacancies were low in that area. Phoning up some of the agents, if there is vacancies, they kind of fill up quite fast.
Yep.
And it was fully occupied at that point in time, kind of bringing in a passing rent of £26,700. So we went for a viewing. So I went down to have a look at the place. It was the plot itself was 7,000 square feet, and the accommodation comprised of a kind of retail parade ground and office space upstairs. So it was kind of 4,500 feet of office space or retail, and maybe £3,000 of a rear yard, which was a kind of bit of a mess.
3,000 square foot, the rear yard, yeah. So a bit of a mix.
Yeah.
Okay. And what was the occupancy like?
So it was fully occupied at the time. Right. It was kind of daily essential spend tenants. There was barbers and hairdressers. There was a kind of bespoke cake shop there, and there was an accountant's.
Right, okay. A good mix. And Newcastle's still quite far away.
Yep. And
you found it on Zoopla, but did you actually look at Manchester, Birmingham, and everywhere else, or were you specifically looking in Newcastle area?
I think I was scouring the UK,
right.
to be honest, just for the right property.
Yeah.
And yeah, there was a lot in the northwest of England. I suppose closer to home is always best. Scotland seemed to be a kind of quieter market. There was a wee bit of a struggle because we kind of found that in the mastermind group, you know, to find something was quite difficult. So this one popped out and it sort of ticked the boxes.
Ticked the boxes for you. So got it over the line. Then there's some asset management to be done. So what were the first few things that you did to improve that property?
So part of the objectives was to add value, you know, kind of coming for the resi background and then coming for the mastermind background. It was more active than passive.
Yep.
I was kind of wanting that approach to add value where possible. So we looked at the makeup of the tenants. The tenants were kind of local tenants and who I like dealing with anyway, putting something back into the community. But they were all in, whether it was a mutual agreement or an expired lease or expiring leases. So they were all quite weak. And that's a bit of risk in itself.
Yep.
But with the education, that's where you can add value if you know the way to do it.
Process.
So, yeah, I know the process, yeah.
Yeah, so were any of those leases coming to a review stage or an end?
Yeah, so one had ended. I found out through my due diligence that one of the tenants was actually the owner of the building that was being taken back by the bank.
Yeah.
So that was, I wouldn't say difficult, but it was strange, you know. So I had to have these discussions with the guy and let him know that I knew, you know, because I'd done the due diligence on all the tenants, whether it was Facebook or Instagram or
Yep.
or Company's House, and that's when I found out. And the agent then told me that, yeah, he was the owner of the building. So that was a conversation to be had. So yeah, just the leases were either expired, coming to an end, or there was no lease. There wasn't a lease. This guy was basically occupying the property during that insolvency process, which we can go into later, but that was another bit to get over the line,
Yep.
you know. So there was a bit of improvement to be had, but you know, the market rents in comparison to other places local were quite low as well. So there was value to be added there. And the site visit, we went down on site and we had a look at the actual makeup of the place. He was occupying an extension, quite interesting. It was a kind of separate building that was attached and 1,000 square feet. And it was just full of junk. There was all sorts in there. And he didn't use it. So, you know, part of the conversation was, right, okay, we could reclaim that, we could get another tenant in there and add value that way as well.
So did you have to do much actual physical changes or improvements?
No, I mean, the commercial space, it was really just a nice shell that was provided for the tenants, you know.
And by the sounds of it, most of the tenants stayed?
Yeah.
It's just re-gearing the leases, really.
So
not quite a paperwork exercise,
no,
but
not
nevertheless.
Not quite. There was a couple of things. So firstly, the backyard was, you know, there was quite a few trees in there. It's a conservation area. So one of the challenges was TPO, or tree preservation order. So I got a local tree surgeon to submit that and put some stuff on there that it was going to get turned into a car park to open up another business, to bring things into the kind of the town as such. And that get passed, the trees get felled, and then the next stage was to kind of level out the back area. So we kind of got that packed up with type 1 and kind of planings and stuff, and the guys done a great job of that. So that was access to the rear extension. That work I done in the rear extension was just pretty much clean it out and put a kind of access shutter door, thinking it could be a trade in there, electrical or plumber, somebody that comes round the back. He's got car parking. And
is that what happened?
No, an antique centre moved in. So I put a kind of double
all the best planning.
Yeah, all the best planning, yeah. Actually, there was nothing marketed at all. It was all word of mouth, you know, people in for a haircut, what's happening around the back. Oh, right, so can you, there was quite a lot of people called us. Guy wanted it as a kind of motorbike club, you know, kind of meeting ground type thing, or storage for bikes and stuff like that. Somebody wanted it as just a kind of personal workshop. There's a few people come through interested as such, you know. But yeah, a couple of shutters on there and cleared it out inside. It was kind of concrete floor based, and I got a new electrical supply put in there, which, when I say it was a challenge, the local builder dealt with all that. So that's pretty much all that was done with that rear section. And then the front sections, we're kind of going down the line here. The accountant, he left eventually, probably 9 months after completion. He wouldn't sign a lease, which was a bit of a risk. Spoke to my solicitor, who said, there's a thing called security of tenure, which somebody's, it's a kind of right people have got if they've been in occupation in a place and under certain conditions, without getting into the detail. But he advised that we offer him a tenancy at will, which is just a kind of small lease, just a couple of bits of paper with some writing on it saying you can lease it per month for X amount, and he accepted that. But by signing that, he was easy to evict if we couldn't get him to sign a lease further down the line. He just, finances wise and stuff, and I was happy to give him a chance. I understood his position, but he eventually left, and that left a big space because he occupied 3 offices up the stairs, and he occupied a unit and a big extension. So that's where the split came as such.
Yeah. Okay. But you've got that relet.
That's relet, yeah.
Yeah.
So
100% occupied right now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a few strands I want to go down, so I'm going to try and remember them all right. Financially right now, can you tell us roughly what the ROI is on the money in?
So it was purchased for 250,000. That was bought in the SSAS.
Yep.
The passing rent at the time was 26,700.
Okay, so
which
a
was
multiple of 10 and a bit.
10.7 or 10.6 or something. So the process then was obviously to improve the leases and get the rents comparable with with that area.
Yep.
So there's a few things happen, but current rent. So 250 purchase. I put about 30k into the refurb in the rear, the trees, the yard, and then just a couple of other things, heating and electrics. So that was a 280 spend. And currently, after the RPI inflator has took place, after the first rent increase there, the rent is now 42,600, which gives 15.7 or thereabouts return on the capital employed.
And a different valuation, no doubt.
The valuation came back at 475,000, which is nice for a net asset value for your SSAS, because that's obviously a value of your pension asset.
Because at the moment you don't have leverage in there, but that would help that increase to allow you to do that. Yeah. Okay, the other part I want to jump back to, because you mentioned right back at the start that you're still working offshore, and is that what's the shift pattern on that? Is it 3 week on, 2 week? How does that work at the moment?
It's a bit of an unequal 2 on 3 off, so it's 2 on 2 off, 2 on 4 off.
Right.
So
okay.
2 2 2 4. If that's
okay. So that does give you chunks of time.
It does
to go and do stuff, but it also gives you zero time at other points, right? So how did you act? Because there was work going on there. It wasn't just paper exercise. There was some hardcore to go down, clearing out, How did you manage that whilst also having to go offshore? And it's how far is it actually from here? 2.5 hours, maybe.
Yeah, it's about 2 hours 50 minutes.
Yeah,
really.
yeah. So,
Roughly.
yeah. Did you have somebody on the ground? Did you just do it when you could? Move down there when you come back on shore, you're straight to Newcastle. How did that work?
Pretty much a visit every time home. Initially, I mean, once it was bought, it was fully occupied, so it's kind of difficult to go down there and be about a property you own when
you can't actually get into it
because it's kind of meaningless.
Because most of yours is leases, right?
Yeah.
It's not. Is there any licenses at all?
No.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a difference there, isn't there, about whether you can get in and look around the property. But when you were getting the hardcore done and the clear out of the accountants area, did you have somebody locally managing that?
Yeah. So probably another challenge was getting some prices in, and we had some heating engineers costing new heating system, and I thought, well, that's quite expensive. Knowing the prices that I pay up north, was he just charging me a bit higher because I'm remote? And then I came across a local builder who was recommended by one of the tenants that was moving in, and great guy. And he just, he took care of everything. He stays local in the village. and yeah, so he was just
Fantastic.
he
Landed
just
on your feet there then.
landed on my feet, you know, and prices were very competitive, and he would pop up. I mean, since then, if anybody's got any problems, he'll always
You're
pop
your
in.
man
So
on the
I've
ground.
got a good contact down there.
Fantastic. So in terms of managing the clients, because obviously it's not licenses, you don't have to be down all the time, but nevertheless, there's still management to be done there. Have you employed an agent, or are you doing all that work yourself?
Just doing it myself, Jerry. I'll say there's not a lot. You know, there was a lot in terms of, you know, the conveyancing process, getting it completed, then trying to get people onto the new leases,
Yep.
and then the kind of refurbishment and stuff. So, but most of it was phone calls, and then I kind of enjoyed the drive down, listening to things in the car. You know, that's kind of what you
The
do.
old podcast.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've done, and you got to get yourself in the frame of mind, you know,
Yeah.
because that's what you do in your daytime. But yeah, I visit her maybe twice at the most when I was home. But after the refurbishment was completed, I mean, I don't think I've been down there, dare I say it, maybe for about a year or something.
Yeah.
or
Fantastic.
9 months or something.
Just remind me how many retail units there were.
So there was 4.
Yep.
It's now 5.
Right, okay. And do they all have separate amenities, their own electric, their own lighting, their own toilets, everything? Yeah. And the fifth one, did that mean installing new toilets and things, or were they actually there?
No, they were already there. They
Right.
were all I needed was a new water meter and an electrical supply in
Okay.
there.
What length of lease are on the shops?
So everybody's adopted. It was kind of a progressive process because they were all in there in different things. So the antique centre, or that space, became the first available.
It's the new.
It's a new one because
all new terms now, right?
'cause,
Yeah.
So it became the first available. So it was offered on a 5-year FRI lease,
Yep.
which was what I'd been educated to get it on. You know, no cost to me, and all the cost to the tenant, including insurance. So it was offered on that basis, and they accepted that. So that was the kind of the grounds were
Yep.
set. I'd spoke to a local solicitor because leases can be quite expensive, you know. So I got an agreement where it was, say,
Want
it
to be
was
able to use
12,
it again.
Yeah, use it again at a reduced price, you know. So I kind of got the first one for 12, and then the rest for kind of 700 or whatever, and they done all the kind of process and stuff.
Yep.
So that was agreed. Then I had to fill the accountant's front shop and the cake shop. They make these bespoke cakes. It's an artwork in itself. You see them a lot, you know, whether it's football shirts or cars or old people sitting in benches on these cakes, you know. It really is an art form. And she was looking to take upstairs as additional space, and it was the builder that says, why don't you move next doors, because it's got all the upstairs. And she kind of bit on that quite easily. And I thought, why did I not think of that myself? But
yeah, this builder's definitely coming in handy. He's doing your sales for you. He's doing viewings. Yeah.
So I told her that, you know, I kind of basically said this would be the rent. It would be 12 grand a year, and a full repair and insurance would be X. But I did say that the repairs, she was quite high up in the percentage split. So per square foot, she's pretty much about 50% of the square footage. So any repairs would be quite
allocated to her, quite high. Yeah, okay.
So she was happy with that. So she moved into the front shop, and someone else popped in and says, I heard this unit was becoming available. It was a company, One Dining. So they're gourmet burgers. They've got a couple of these kind of trailers, American kind of pod trailers, and they're well known about that area. They do very well. He didn't have a hot food license. I basically agreed. Well, he said he wanted it. He'd tried for a hot food license up the road, and it was refused, and he spent a few £1,000s and stuff. But I was happy to give him it at the market rent, which was 6,600 per annum. And in future, if he got the hot food license, we would bump that up, and we kind of just agreed mutually a price. I said, what did you get quoted in your last place? And he was looking at a place in Morpeth, and he says, well, 700 a month. And I says, right, we'll go with that then. If you get a hot food license, we'll
pop it up to 84 or whatever the number is.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So he's got his hot food license, and he's up at 84, plus he's got his wee annual inflator on there.
Super.
which I did cap at 5%.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
I didn't want to go down I don't think inflation will be this high forever. And there was a couple of comments, down the line here, I could be paying X amount, so put on a wee
Recap
cap
there.
and collar.
Yeah. Okay. So I want to go back to the period before you bought it. You've had a look at it. It's fully occupied, which is great. There's an income there. You're basically buying an investment, really, albeit investment grade stock, albeit there's plenty of chances coming up in the leases to do some renewals and all that sort of stuff. But other parts of the due diligence are around, what's the local market like? Now, fine, it's 100% occupied, but are there plenty of other shop parades around? Is it actually the only one in town? What did you discover about the local market when you did that due diligence first time round?
So I phoned a couple of agents just to get a feel for the place. Obviously, the kind of chat is, I'm buying this place and I'll be the landlord if successful, and if there's any vacancies, you'll be the place to come to. And the kind of feedback was, it's the high street, it's the main street going through there. There is regeneration. There's now an Aldi being built there. There's a Morrison's through the back. It's quite a quaint town, it's kind of, I think the building itself is circa 1820 or something,
Right.
So it's an old building. And the town, the conservation area and stuff. But yeah, the agents come back and says, look, things don't lie empty for very long, so you'll be fine. And that's the kind of assurance I got, that the area was decent enough.
Yep.
I think through the mastermind group again, we were able to go into the likes of like CoStar and other portals just to get some facts and figures as well. So everything came back positive in terms of the location.
Okay. So let's just summarise on that one. So when you bought it, the yield was just over 10%.
Yeah.
Albeit one could argue some of the leases had kind of finishing, could potentially disappear, etc. And it's now sitting around about 15.
15 and a half, yeah.
And what was the time frame between purchase and getting to 15 and a half?
So 15 and a half was probably December 22. Purchased in March of 20, because 2 weeks later.
Probably not the best time period to be doing an analysis on how long it takes, because obviously we know what happened in the world at that point. But nevertheless, March 2020 through to December 22, did you say? Yeah, okay. Not bad.
It wasn't bad, yeah. When you take away the pandemic phase, which hit 2 weeks after it was purchased, I would say that all the tenants paid every rent, and they utilised their government grants to refurbish and improve their places, ready for the reopening and to get their business back, because they're local businesses, and that's how local businesses act.
Yeah. Great. Okay, so that's that one. I really wanted to talk about that, so thanks for that, especially about the retail element. So it hasn't stopped there, though. You have decided to come a little bit closer to home. And you've bought another property, which was, I'm guessing here, 18 months ago? 18 months ago?
It was March 22.
Right, so just over 12 months ago. Great. Let's start talking about that one. So it's not too far away from where we are right now. Occupancy, what type of building was it? Size? Maybe you could just give us some details around that one, Derek.
Yeah, so that one, it's a sandstone tenement design. It was over 2 blocks, around about 3,500 square feet, and tenant base there was kind of beauty and professional services. So again, accountants, and then your kind of nails and hair, and some specialised cosmetic businesses in there as well. And
are they in retail units, or is it all sort of studio office space?
Studio office space, yeah.
Yeah.
So the building itself, back, maybe the 1960s or 70s, I think it got converted to commercial. Would have been 1-bedroom flats and 2-bedroom flats type thing. That sort of kind of design. So individual rooms.
Classic resi to commercial conversion. Yeah, we like those.
And lovely high ceilings and cornice features, that sort of thing.
Great, okay. But you didn't buy that one on your own. You bought your own bit on your own, but maybe you could go through the process you went through with Stephen there.
Yeah. So I'll call it a JV
Yeah.
because we're pretty much joint, myself and Stephen Gallagher, who's well known in the kind of SSAS community.
Yep.
The deal actually got brought to Stephen. We had met probably a few months beforehand. We kind of met up, liked each other's values, and you know, Stephen's quite motivated, and he just wanted to, you know, get involved type things. So we kind of looked at a few things. We agreed that we could work together, and it was quite exciting because I'd just been working myself type
Yeah.
thing. So yeah, we got to know each other, and this got passed over pretty much. He kind of got an early bird viewing, as it were, you know. So you'll be the first viewing of the morning because he had went through this agent a couple of times and things never progressed. So he got the early bird viewing. I was offshore at the time, and I got the phone call. I would have been night shift, so I'm kind of kind of half sleeping.
Yeah.
He's like, right, this is the facts and the figures. Are you happy? Pretty much like a 50-50 split, you know, 2 blocks. So it would be one seller and 2 buyers.
Yes,
we
title split, basically,
yeah. We split the title on completion, and that would mean if anything went kind of, you know, that I wanted to sell or he wanted to sell, then, you know, we were kind of split. But we had our ideas and what we wanted to do with this building. So we it was going to be pretty much a bit of a joint venture, you know.
And how's that worked out? Because when you bought it did have some tenancies. I don't think it was full, was it?
Stephen's was full.
Right, your
Mine's
side.
had a couple of vacancies. There was
Yep.
one vacancy during the conveyancing, and it became kind of 2 vacancies by completion, just 2 small units type thing. But,
and have you guys had to change any units, or have they pretty much remained the same? I appreciate it's been redecoration and upgrading, but actual physically, have you had to change the form of any of the units?
there was a building warrant put in for my block just to create a toilet, understair toilet. There was a nice big cupboard area under the stairs as you go in, and get a building warrant in. Submitted a building warrant to get that changed into a kind of bit of a luxury toilet. Stephen had a bit of structural work, very small, just a bit of a slap out wall to make a communal kitchen area.
Yep.
So he's went for a kind of communal aspect with the kind of high tech coffee machine and, you know, that sort of kind of area. And I've went for the kind of internal kind of kitchen space where we've got all the facilities, you know, internal.
So there's your personalities appearing in the different buildings.
It was more by design because the original rooms had these kind of internal, just kind of kitchen areas just in the kind of archways.
Yeah.
You know, so the pipe work was there, and we kind of decided, you know, well, that's a bit of a mix. We had at this point decided that rather than go down the improving the leases to FRI and that kind of way, we were well on the way to the kind of CMO flexible office strategy. So it's what would work there, and I think in terms of making a kitchen, the way Stephen's design was, it worked well for him, and it worked better for me just to keep the kind of kitchen areas there to provide a kitchen space for the occupants.
So you mentioned CMO there and going more flexible. So what's your contract type in Newcastle? Leases, 5-year FRI. What's happening in Hamilton?
So Hamilton's, when I say early stages, we're going down a licence route.
Yep. There'll be some historical stuff there you have to work through, of course.
Yeah. So obviously I had a couple of vacancies, and I started work to refurbish those 2 rooms into what would be nice high-end flexible office spaces, you know, with the kind of instant hot water taps and the fridge and microwave type thing, and, you know, nice features in there as well. I've kind of got the cornicing in the front room, and I've put in some cornicing in the back room as well, and the ceiling rose type thing. Stephen had a tenant in his block who wanted to expand. In the process, since we've bought it, we have applied and had planning approved to develop the attic space. So that's going to give us an extra 3 offices each, so 6 offices in total. that wasn't going to be available in time for the architect, so he moved on, and that gave Stephen a couple of rooms. And I think when you go in there and you work in these buildings, tenants sometimes get a bit itchy. They're thinking, what's going on? Am I going to be safe? That sort of thing. And you know, he's moved on. So then we kind of spoke to the existing tenants and says, look, this is the model that we're adapting downstairs, and this is the model that we're intending to adapt to upstairs. It's a flexible basis, and we told them the terms and conditions. I think when they seen the spaces, it was a bit of a wow factor. Stevens had 2 of his tenants upstairs moving down, or sub-tenants moved down into the flexible space, and I've had one of mine moved down who occupies 2 rooms upstairs, and this is just current as we speak. You know, she's not yet moved down, but you know, we've kind of agreed the terms.
So, like you say, it's a process that takes a bit of time. Yeah, it keeps a year or 2 to get these things to wash through. Have you, during that, managed to get a little bit of an uplift on the rentals then, because you're given such nicer space?
There has been a slight uptake in some of the rents.
Maybe more with the new people.
Yeah.
Because when you're renegotiating with somebody's there existing, we're all in this to make money, but also you don't want to completely take the mickey. We tend to do that. If we buy a new building, it's got occupants, we'll continue pretty much on what they were on. We will do some increases, but not right up to market rate. Yeah. Because, you know, it's only when people move out and you start, you know, it's a clean slate.
Yeah, exactly. There's obviously an element of relationships as well.
Yeah.
And yes, the long-term, you know, existing tenants, their premises haven't been refurbished. It's only the common parts that's been refurbished.
Yep.
So we've kind of had that in mind. You know, there has been a tenant or 2 who's had an upgrade in their room, and hence they've had a rent increase.
Yeah.
But in general, the existing tenants have just been left as they are, with a long-term view of building that relationship and having them in the new model. And if not, then
next,
yeah.
Okay, so, right, that's 2 in the bag. This one's still going through the process. Newcastle, I mean, never done, but certainly done for the moment, right? You've not put any leverage on these. Is there intention to go again with the SSAS? What's your thoughts for next?
Yeah, I mean, busy period, just trying to stabilise Hamilton. Being involved with Stephen, he's very, very active, so there's always things in the pipeline, and yes, there's probably enough in the tank for another project, for sure.
And have you, reflecting on this you've done, have you had any thoughts on investment criteria? You may not have thought in that way, but just reflecting on what you've learned from those 2, the size they are, the location they're in, the type of mix, the type of product. You've already mentioned about maybe moving from leases more towards licenses. Is there any other tweaks you might look for on the next one, whether it's bigger, smaller, more licensed?
I think in terms of, it looks like the figures work well for the kind of flexible space. It's very, very, very early stages and very rough projections, but I would tend to say that, you know, that rental income in Hamilton was 39,100 at purchase. It was purchased at 370k. We could, you know, potentially get that income after bills paid up to 90. You know,
huge difference.
90,000. So we could double that. You know, and more,
and a bit,
potentially, if we get everybody on that same kind of model, which
and that's net of all costs.
Yeah, that's net of bills, etc. Obviously, how you in the SSAS, everything's tax free.
Sure,
there is, there is options. There is a wee thing that we're considering whether we kind of rent back to the limited company and. And take
do
some
an operations
profits. Do an operations model outside the SSAS.
Yeah, so at the moment,
that's an
they're
option,
completely owned in the SSAS. Yeah. The rental checks go back to the SSAS and individual customers. It's totally separate. Whereas, maybe at some point on operating business, that is
the plan is to have the operating company in there and release a bit from the SSAS. So, but I'm just giving total figures there so it doesn't get
Sure,
messy for this.
sure. But also from the SSAS point of view, the market rate for the building is 39,000, wherever the number is.
Yeah.
And the trading element, which is really where the flex stuff comes in, is another 40 or 41 or whatever the number is. And yeah, you then have a choice. Do I put this back in the SSAS? Do I supplement some income right now? And it's interesting that that combination of SSAS and CMO allows you to generate or give you the potential to generate income from your pension now rather than waiting for pension age. And it would be the same if the SSAS was investing in, if you had a garage and it was investing in, more buildings or space. It's the same principle. It's to earn some money back into the SSAS, but also to allow the business to thrive.
Yeah. And it works well for people below pension age.
Yeah.
I'll be open and honest, I'm 56, so I'm at that, I'm past 55, so I'm at that pension age where I can withdraw. So why am I going down the operating model? Well, I want to involve my sons,
Yep.
and quite, I want to get them involved in it, and quite honestly, just give them some cash early on in life. So,
well, there's another little nuance about SSAS there, isn't there? Is that you can pass it on without necessarily having that big tax bill. Yeah. Okay, brilliant. So, any other parameters you think about looking forward? We mentioned about flex space. Would there be size, location, anything? Basically, what I'm asking really, Derek, is what have you learned from those that's going to fine tune for the next project?
Probably different type of projects, and and going for the kind of retail CMO to the kind of flex space, and the flex space is quite early doors. The website is just going to go live, and hopefully that's when we start getting the inquiries for the spaces that's going to come our way, and we can get them filled. I suppose learnings, really for anybody getting involved in buying commercial, one of the biggest kind of factors I've always one of the biggest factors I've learned is to get the boots on the ground and talk to the tenants. The agents probably don't like it, but when you go
on potential purchases, go and speak to them.
Yeah, go and speak to the tenants. Especially with Newcastle, where there was leases that was expiring and stuff. You're thinking, what's going on down there? Are all these tenants jumping? But actually, there's other problems, or there's problems with the landlord, or there's problems. So speak to neighbouring businesses, people across the road. It's amazing what you'll find out about that property. You'll just learn so much. What in terms of the Hamilton, kind of struggled a wee bit with builders and trades and stuff. It took us a wee while to get off the ground, to get the quotes in and agree on a builder that was going to take control and manage things. So that was a bit of a kind of struggle, but that's the relationships that you get and the relationships you build.
Did you find having one local and one further away, that there was much of a difference with that?
I probably, Hamilton's current, I found myself spending more time at Hamilton than Newcastle, because Newcastle will be a phone call away, and I had a good builder down there.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Do you think the Hamilton one is the struggle with the builders is because you're a bit closer, or do you think it was just actually just luck of the draw, and that's where you just ended up with?
It was just luck of the draw.
Yeah.
So again, if you know a good builder, then you're in a good place, and you can keep a hold of that. Maybe have a couple of good builders, because builders are always busy, and they've always got different projects, and you want yours done now, type things. So
yeah, okay, all right. So just closing off, Derek. It's been really interesting to hear those two different projects, how they're evolving, and as you say, Hamilton's still working its way through right now. But there is still some funds there for doing the next project, so it will be interesting to follow up with what you're going to do next. But if somebody else was starting right now with their similar scenario, they've got a pension pot they've built up over a number of years of working hard, and now they're wanting to make that work hard for them, what are a couple of tips you'd maybe give them? just, you know, while they're starting out, because you've had your own unique journey, you know, a bit of education in there as well. What would you suggest to someone that's listening to this that's in a similar situation or coming up to the same situation?
Yeah, I was looking forward to how retirement would look like. I've been on a decent wage and for quite a while, so I'm thinking, right, how am I going to survive, and what does my retirement wage look like? And that would
What
be
does survival look like?
your pension fund. So I had a defined benefit pension, which was going to yield me 8,600 per annum, and I had some other defined contribution funds as
Yeah.
well that was lying about there. So that defined benefit actually transferred out to like 350 grand thereabouts, you know. So it was quite a portion there. And I looked at the pension pots and I thought, okay, it's hard to project what they're going to give, and is it going to be an annuity, or am I going to, you know, is it going to be a kind of ongoing investment, kind of drawdown type pension? So I thought that my funds might kind of get up around about the 25,000 mark. So they're now
Yeah.
up probably close to the kind of 60, 70, 80,000.
Yeah, so 350 producing 8 grand is not exciting, right?
No, so I put the risk in that first. I transferred that across,
Yes.
and I played with that. But to the answer to your question, tips for people, what they think. So education, firstly, and whether it's the SSAS world, get involved in some of the communities and networking. There's communities in Scotland. There's communities all over the northeast, northwest, London, and also if you know, education, commercial property, because it is a different beast, and you want to make sure that you're doing the right things, because there can be some banana skins in it. It's obviously shark infested waters. People try to get rid of buildings, and you know, there's problems there. So a wee bit of education goes a long way, and I suppose the rest of it is just that confidence. Is that what you want to do? You know, do you want to sit on your pension and think, okay, that it's going to get me X amount, but I might not get that amount. It might be 5% this year, or 10% growth that year, or it might be 15 that year. So it's a kind of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And I found it hard to kind of, you know, I heard all this terminology, be in control of your own pension, and I thought, what does that actually mean, you know? And I'm still not in control here because I'm educating myself in property and somebody else is telling me what to do and that. But further down the line now, I kind of see where I'm in control, and I think properties, it's a good area for, it's a good security really. You know, you've got the bricks and mortar there. If it needs to be sold, you've got the income if that's the case. So
yeah,
I don't see it as
the shares.
as a
You're
big risk.
not in control, are you?
No.
Or annuity, but
Exactly.
you're not in control. And the interesting thing about the SSAS element, as we mentioned earlier on, is you can leave it to other future generations, can't you? So you're build, as often mentioned in the community, you know, you're building wealth, intergenerational wealth. It's pretty unique. Okay, this has been really interesting. Thanks for joining me, Derek.
Thank you, Jerry.
And I look forward to seeing what that next project is, and also hearing how Hamilton develops out. It's been fascinating. Thank you for joining me.
No problem.